conversations.
Okay, let me ask you a question that may be a little off track, but I don't really think it is. After my mom passed away, and she spent the last 12 years of her life, we shared a house together. She's still in that house. And I know she's in that house because I feel her, I talk to her, granted I don't have a verbal response, but that response is there. And I've got people that think I ought to be locked up in a straitjacket. Yeah. How do you approach that?
Well, I think that dying is very much like being born. When we are carried in utero and birth starts happening, I suspect that if we could talk to that little infant, that it might say something like, something's gone wrong. What's going on? It feels like I'm going somewhere. And yet, once we are born, we don't really go anywhere. We just move from the womb into the world. And so we haven't really gone anyway, but perspective has been so changed and shifted. I suspect that dying is very much the same, that we don't really go anywhere out there, that perspective is very changed. And so I don't think it's unusual for us to have experiences of people who have died, of feeling like they are near at times. In 25 years of working with people who are dying, after they die, almost every family I ever worked with came with stories about their experience of the person who had died. And it's always been interesting because people will come up and say, I'm going to tell you something, but I've never told anybody else, and I know you're going to think I'm crazy. And every time somebody said that to me, I knew what was coming. It's a story about an experience of someone who's no longer in a physical body, but who is being experienced. Those experiences are real, and I think it's important for us to embrace those as what they are, which is an experience of our loved ones.
Okay. When we talk about death and dying, that's a finality, that's an end, that is, we see it as the end of the journey, and we see it with a great deal of black darkness, fear, and all of that. How do you overcome that?
I think it's by living fully. I think it's by learning to walk consciously through our transitions, no matter what they are, because we all go through lots of them. We come onto the planet through transition. Right. We have birthdays, we get married, we have children, there are all kinds of transitions. We lose jobs, we go through divorces, we get married. As we get conscious about the fact that those are all expanding, opening experiences, we begin to trust the creative process itself, which is one of the heart breaking open and something new coming from it. And as we begin to trust that in life, when we come to end of life, it's like, oh, I'm doing it again. This time I'm going to be dropping the body, but I still can trust the process because I know it now. I'm not shoving it aside all the time. That's what the book is really about, is how to let life itself change me, transform me, expand me, even in the really dark places.
Where can we find it?
You can find it at my website, which is www.compassionateartspublishing.com. You can also find it on Amazon.com. And for booksellers, it's available through Midpoint Trade out of New York.
Okay, we're starting to run out of time. In 30 seconds, what would you like to leave our viewers with on why they need to look at this life-affirming wisdom from the dying?
Because the dying are teaching us how to live presently. And it's by looking at end of life, by accepting the fact that we are temporary beings on the planet. When we embrace that, we begin to live more fully. We live unapologetically. We live full tilt. And after all, isn't that what we're here about? Is to have a full experience of being on the planet. And so that when we come to end of life, we have fully owned it. And there's a different quality about letting it go. And I just think it's time for us to talk about what's really real and going on, which is that we are changing all the time.
I could talk to you all day about this, but we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining us today, Julie.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure to be here.
The power of a broken, open heart. And for those of you who are like me, boomers, and for those boomers who think we're going to live forever, we're not. So talk to your kids about what you want, how you want it, and then start taking lessons from life-affirming wisdom from the dying, because from the moment we're born, that's where we're all headed, whether we ever want to bet it or not. I'm Linda Thompson.